I want to call our meeting to order. Welcome to all of you. This time I'm going to ask Dr. Light if he'd open us in a word of prayer.
Lord, thank you for bringing us together today. Thank you for allowing us to make these decisions that are best for the students of Lincoln County. We ask that you help us to follow your word, listen to your word, and we thank you and praise you for all that you provide. In Jesus' name and Lord's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Light. We need to modify the
We do,
agenda.
and thank you. We got a phone call from, if you roll down to number 8, where it says enrollment request, the parent that made that enrollment request has now withdrawn that enrollment request. So we need to modify the agenda by removal of number 8.
Okay, and at this time, we normally vote on the consent items altogether. Ms. Freeman said since she was absent last week, she does not want to vote on the minutes. So we're going to vote on these items separately. So the first item under consent is the agenda
So moved.
as modified.
As modified.
And a second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. All right. The minutes of the February 11th, 2020 meeting. I have a motion by Mr. Hartman to approve them. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? One abstain. And the 2 overnight field trips. Band students to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, March 12th through 14th. And the overnight field trip, FCCLA State Leadership Conference, Atlanta, Georgia, March 19th through 22nd.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second by Ms. Freeman. All in favor? Unanimous. And one policy for revision, GBD personnel hiring. I make a motion that we approve the policy for revision, GBD personnel hiring. Have a second by Mr. Hyman. All in favor? Unanimous.
No public participation.
All right, next on the agenda is financials. Ms. Buffett.
All right, we'll start with the, let's see, we'll read these. With the revenues, and you can see that, I'm not quite as good as Michael at handling this, with 66.66% of the year completed. We have collected 87.37% of our taxes, so we are in good shape on our taxes. You can see a couple of the others are a little over where we haven't amended our budget yet. We're still working on those figures. We got notification on several federal grants that they were being amended, and we've got to amend those. So rather than bring it to you every month, I'm just waiting until we kind of get everything finalized on this year.
Amendment to the good.
Yes, all had received a little more money, not a lot, but a little more money. So that these are good things. But so we want to wait and just present that all at one time. But we do have 75.08% of our current budget that has been collected, and as of 66.66% of the year, so that is good. On the expenditure side, we're at 64.65, so a little under where we budgeted, so that is also good. And if we come on over to the balance sheet, you can see that we have about $3.7 million in the bank, and our fund balance is at 2.866. And I look back at last year's just for comparison, and we had almost the exact amount in the bank. It was $3.713 million in the bank. So that was very, very similar. For the fund balance, we were a little bit higher. We were at $3,055,000. So a couple of $100,000 there difference there, but still very close to the figures that we have for this year. So that was quite interesting. That's just a summary showing you where the revenues and expenditures are through this point in the year. On our SPOS collections, we collected $52,348.20. You can see that is more than last year at $51,855, a little less than last month, but still above our budgeted figure of $50,000. On the SPOS summary, our total year-to-date on the SPOS is $453,000. That is 75.61%. I forgot to put that on the sheet, but I did figure that up for you. So 75.61% of our budget on the SPOS, so we're doing quite well with that, with a balance of $524,633. And on our ad valorem tax, we're at $674,804, which is 90.67% of our ad valorem tax. So very good collections on that. The low thing is the TABT. Unfortunately, after we did the budget, we found out, and we're still trying to get this verified, but they don't pay TABT on bond tax anymore for our bond ad valorem. So that little bit was collected from the previous month, and we had budgeted $111,000 for that. So we're still trying to get some clarification exactly why that stopped. Apparently the state made a change in the law, and that's the way they're interpreting it now, is that you only get it on the general fund, the M&O ad valorem tax, and not bond tax. So that will affect us on that. Not so much this year, because you can see we have our payments for this year with the bond balance of $1,047,000. So we got $1.5 million towards that April payment. We got it covered. But working towards the next year's payment. That may affect how we look at that bond tax in September. And on our capital projects, we have $52,503 available for projects that have yet to be specified. So we're just kind of holding that for an emergency, I guess, basically. So.
Any questions for Ms. Buffer? Thank you, Ms. Buffer.
Yes, sir.
Next on the agenda is selection of district legislative delegate and alternate.
At last month's board meeting, we discussed someone stepping forward and being the delegate and going to Savannah, and who's gone in the past. And Mr. Madsen has volunteered graciously to go to Savannah and was all excited for the opportunity. So he has committed himself to go. So if we could nominate and vote on Mr. Madsen being our legislative delegate, and then we'll have to elect an alternate, sir.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I second that motion, Ms. Freeman. All in favor?
Do I vote on that?
You can't vote for yourself.
I can't.
You can't. It won't count.
He can not vote for himself.
It's true.
And we also need a secondary.
Was that unanimous? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't see that.
Well, Jim
And
abstained.
Jim didn't vote for himself.
I wanted to.
And I know we talked last month that Chris was gonna check and see if
I can
his
do
schedule
that.
would allow it. So I make a motion that he be our alternate.
Second.
All in favor? 4 with 1 abstain. All right, thank you. And you'll work with, and like you said, as we talked about before, in May, they'll probably have the different positions, and then at that time, the board will vote how we want you to vote in representing us there, so we'll get back to that at that time.
To the position. Exactly.
All right, number 8 was removed, and so now we're going to 9, possible revision, the school wellness.
I think everyone is aware that school nutrition now goes through a 5-year review, and this is, I think, the second round of that 5-year review. That being said, when those things come around, they make a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments to either policy and or procedures that happen in school nutrition. they review your policy before you ever get to the 5-year review. They send you a list of what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be moved, compared to what it was the prior year, so that you can pass your review. As we tried to make multiple changes to it, we ended up eliminating the entire policy, as you can tell. And as you pull all the way down to the 9th page, I believe it is, it starts the new policy for the wellness policy. There's a lady named Lydia that is in school food service at the state level. She has reviewed this, I believe, 4 times, trying to go through and get it to where she feels it needs to be to pass our nutrition review. So that's the reason for all of the changes. It is because of the nutrition review. They very specifically have identified what needs to be or can be sold for competitive foods within the school and the time frame for competitive foods within the school, the calorie amounts, the types of snacks. They're being very, very specific. That was not in there before. That needs to be added. Now, the beverages were identified, but it wasn't to this specificity. They have enhanced it even more, supposedly, so there's no question to clarify. So all of this has gone back through Lydia at the state, and she is the one that has provided this input and recommendation. So that's the reason for all of the change.
Is there a reason, I mean, this is wellness, and it has just one little section that actually talks about anything other than nutrition.
That's correct.
So, I mean,
They had to attach a wellness policy to something. It got attached to school nutrition, as opposed to, say, each school have their own wellness policy. 100 years ago, when I was a teacher, Duval County had a wellness policy, but it was based on teacher activity, whether you were doing certain miles or walking certain steps every day and those kind of things, trying to enhance the health of the staff. They've gone the exact opposite way now, and they've attached it to school nutrition. And then the next policy down is employee leaves, and that is for review.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure, absolutely.
So, how much is actually gonna change what we're doing now? Anything?
Actually, I think we're pretty close to meeting all of these already. As an example, in the cafeteria, the things that are sold for competitive foods, we already have those 0 drinks in there. Competitive foods that are sold for during the school day cannot be beyond these calorie limits or sodium limits, so we're already doing that. All they're trying to do is to clarify it for our evaluation that happens every 5 years, and it has to be in the policy this way. So no, I don't think a lot will change. I don't think the students will notice a change.
Okay, so let me ask another question.
Okay?
I'm reading down here on number 3 on page, I don't know what page it is, it's towards the bottom.
Okay?
It's talking about physical activity goals.
page 13.
Okay, thank you. So it doesn't really, it kind of gives them an opportunity to have physical activity instead of making them do anything. Is that right?
Well, after they meet their requirement for physical education to graduate, then it becomes an elective. So it's
Okay.
not required that you have to have 4 PEs,
Right.
but it can be an elective, and they try to encourage that and provide that opportunity. In other words, they don't want the school to say, if you only had to have 9th grade PE and after that it was an elective, we could technically lock you out and say we only need 1 PE coach for Lincoln County because we only need 1 credit for everybody. We don't want to do that. That would hurt us in a lot of ways. So we do provide that opportunity for our children to get that physical activity.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about what Jason was kind of saying, you know, that we need to exercise.
Yes, sir.
We all do.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Okay, going down to employee leaves, that one is for review, so there isn't any changes on that one.
Any other comments on these two policies? Okay, next on our agenda is superintendent's reports, informational items.
I have the information item on coronavirus that goes all the way back to February 27th. The bulk of the February 27th email that came from the School Superintendent's Association was put on our website on that morning, or that Tuesday morning. This is actually Thursday the 27th. We put it on there Tuesday morning so that we could hopefully educate students, moms and dads, teachers, system level, etc., on what we can do as a preventative measure to try to attack this event. What can we do to help prevent it? And then I received a letter from the National Association of School Nurses that we shared with the schools for principals and superintendents, talking about preventative measures, talking about what's the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic, trying to explain where we can guide parents to go to read about this, to get accurate information. Not that the media isn't putting out accurate information, but just trying to provide as much accuracy as possible. There's a workshop in DC in June for preparedness. They sent us that letter. And then today, I received immediate contact from the state superintendent's office talking about Fulton County closing schools. The first paragraph identifies that Fulton County's closed school and thanking Superintendent Mike Looney for his leadership in taking care of student safety. The next paragraph states, we are advising all Georgia school districts to continue following the guidance of the Georgia Department of Public Health and their local boards of health. At this time, school closures are not recommended for other areas. And it goes on to talk about hand washing and those kind of things. The first day that we were contacted on this, I contacted Casey Broom, who is our EMH representative, and after talking to Casey, who felt like that there wasn't any major concern at this point, just be aware and do the preventative maintenance, I turned around and also contacted Public Health trying to reach Hillary. So as we talk to all of those people, and I try to stay up to date every day and read as much as I can about this, we do know that there is some confirmed cases in Georgia. Supposedly there's 3 in Fulton, 1 in Floyd, 1 in Polk, and 1 in Cobb. There's some presumed positives, although not totally approved yet, including Cherokee and Gwinnett and Fayette, other than the ones I mentioned before. So there are some in Georgia. They're not out on this side of the world, but we are going to do everything we can to try and take the preventative measure, teaching the kids hand washing. The principals have guided the custodians to do a lot of additional cleaning. I know that Dr. Gumby was involved in tracking down a custodian earlier today for deeper cleaning, and Ms. Arthur talks about it all the time. So I'm very confident that our principals and our custodians are doing all they can. They want to stay safe, and so do our students. I wanted to mention it tonight, not only for the public, but also for everybody involved. Nobody wants to be sick, but again, do the preventative maintenance. Keep your hands clean, wash your hands. Try to keep your hands away from your face. We all know it's a non-thought habit, but it happens. Try to stay away from that. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. It sounds like a long time, but if you sing happy birthday consecutively twice, that's about 20 seconds. It works. So get your hands good and clean, and that'll prevent a lot of things. I was going to say, you being an expert, I was going to turn and ask you for some medical advice, so go ahead.
And the other thing that they're recommending is that if somebody's have a fever, or if they're complaining of shortness of breath, that they need to go and be checked. So if you have children that's coming to school with fever, they need to be sent back home.
Yes.
They need to go and be checked.
That's actually part of what's on our website, is to encourage parents to keep sick children home, which is a good idea even if it's flu or cold, so that you're not sharing it with others.
Right.
That's a very good idea. Thank you for adding that.
Is that just for kids, students? Is that also for staff?
For staff
All
as well.
staff,
All staff as well.
inside out?
Yes.
Okay.
And, I mean,
Just for clarity.
right. And don't be alarmed if you see people walking around with masks on, and it's okay for them to walk around with masks on if they've got respiratory type
Right.
symptoms.
Right.
Mine's just sinus. Sinus and tired. Sinus and tired. Oh, that's it.
But they're,
Pointing you out.
but is it true that they're protecting themselves from spread, from getting worse?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. It's not that they're contagious, but their immune system is a little wreaking, a little havoc at the time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. You know, overseas, they wear masks all the time, so,
Correct.
every time I go, so. And they didn't have a pandemic.
Thank
That's
you,
all I
sir.
have, sir. Thank you.
All right, need a motion to go in executive session.
A motion that we're doing.
Second,
A motion by Ms. Barksdale, second by Ms. Freeman. We'll call our meeting back to order. Superintendent is recommended, I make a motion that we accept the letter of resignation from Mr. Joe Bracy Wells effective 2/21/2020. Have a second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ms. Erin Burton effective 2/21/2020. Have a second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. The superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ms. Ashley Blanchette effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. Second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. The superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ms. Velda Fritsch from high school end of school year. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ms. Sarah Wheatley at the end of the school year from elementary school. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. The superintendent has recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Ms. Angenika Booker for the parapro position at the high school. Second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Ms. Delicia Ferguson as a full-time bus driver. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Ms. Stephanie Jordan as the high school assistant principal for the 2020-2021 school year. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? All opposed?
abstain.
I have a 4 and 1 abstaining. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Mr. Kevin Hunt as a middle school PE instructor for the 2020-21 school year. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we offer Mr. Charles Folger a contract for elementary special education teacher, 2020-2021 school year. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Opposed?
Abstain.
Superintendent is recommended. I make a motion that we offer Miss Elise Matthews a contract as middle school special education teacher for the 2020-2021 school year. Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, correction on one vote.
What's that?
PE, I believe it was Hunt.
Kevin Hunt?
That should be abstain for me.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Did you get that, Miss Lynn?
I do.
Superintendent is recommended, I make a motion that we offer Ms. Grace Ashmore a contract as elementary school special ed teacher for the 2020-21 school year. Second by Ms. Barksdale, all in favor? Opposed? In favor?
Mhm.
Unanimous. Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Ms. Beth Ewan as elementary school teacher for the 2020-21 school year. Second by Mr. Madison, all in favor?
Abstain.
Superintendent is recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Ms. Tammy Leach as an elementary school teacher for the 2020-21 school year. Second by Mr. Madison, all in favor? Opposed?
Abstain.
Any further business?
That's all I have, sir.
Have a motion by Mr. Madison to adjourn,
So moved.
second by Ms.
Oh.
Spring.